Hello and welcome to another episode of the Never a Straight Answer podcast, the podcast that aims to cover a wide range of topics from conspiracy theories to popular culture and news. I'm your host Gaz, and joining me in the studio, well, it's one said that he found the building blocks of life, but yet it turned out to just be his Lego set. All I know is my co-host, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, good evening everybody, welcome, one and all.
Right, thank you very much, and welcome along to another spellbinding episode of the show.
Hell yeah.
And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome.
Yes, welcome.
And if you're a repeat offender,
keep repeating.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much. We've got a really interesting episode today, as usual. This week we're going to be joined by a returning guest, a very special returning guest, Kira from the three-time award-winning show DNA Today.
Well deserved.
Kira's going to be joining us to have a casual chat about the recent developments in DNA research, genetics, and the possibility that humans could have some sort of alien hybrid DNA.
Oh, yes.
We're going to be getting into it in the show.
We will.
Well, it's a good one. I always like having Kira on the show. She's such a kind of like knowledgeable person, but also kind of like really cool to talk to as well.
Yeah, it's just like a normal conversation between us all. We loved it.
Yeah, it's really cool. Really enjoy Kira coming on the show. That's coming up very shortly in the show.
It will be indeed.
It's been a busy week.
It has.
Yeah, so we had Kira on. But other than that, what have you been up to this week, Taylor?
Me, just working, trying to find some more, info on up and coming episodes. But yeah, generally that kind of stuff. And I like to say, actually, congratulations.
Oh, go on.
And commiserations to England's ladies for getting to the final of the World Cup. But then they lost today at
it's funny
Spain.
that, because I had a bit of a story coming up about Yuri Geller and his predictions, because he's been bending spoons and stuff and making predictions about the Lionesses, which is it's a sad thing, isn't it?
It is, but we got there, you know what I mean? They've got there further than the men have, you know what I mean? We've been waiting.
Oh, the women do really well in the football. I mean, like, I was having a conversation with somebody about it the other day about kind of how some people kind of like consider the ladies' football kind of a lesser class of football, but I mean, I just think if they're doing well, support them. It shouldn't really matter at all, should it?
Yeah, true.
But anyway, that's politics, and we don't want to get into that so early in the show. Anyway, tonight's episode is brought to you in part by Orange County CBD. Yes, we've become an affiliate of CBD Orange County. It's a wellness supplement brand based in the UK. It's really kind of interesting stuff. I mean, if you've not done your research on CBD, definitely worth checking out.
Always check your products before you use it.
Now, it is a kind of a supplement, health supplement, in terms of kind of like helping you de-stress, I'd say. For me personally, I use it for anxieties, as well as kind of like getting a good night's sleep. Yeah, and it kind of does help. I'd say I do recommend it. I personally use it myself.
Same here.
But we do have an offer of 15% off your purchase by going to the Orange County website and using our code NASAPOD at the checkout. Save 15% on all orders plus free delivery over orders of £25 or more.
That's well worth it.
Well worth it indeed. Just tell them Gaz and Taylor sent you.
Sort you out.
I've just got some actually.
And I went out and bought some straight after when I had a little test of it.
I know, because you quite liked it, didn't you?
Yeah, I like the minty,
it's got a minty taste. Well. What I've been doing is as well, right? Because I take a drop of it, but do you know I've got one of those like air sort of purifier sort of things. Aroma sort of kind of puts a mist of kind of therapeutic oils into the air. Yeah, I stick a couple of drops in that. And then it just kind of chills the whole room out. Anyway,
does. And the animals
and the cat.
Chills out the cat.
Exactly.
Yeah, certainly does.
Well, that's it. There will be a link in the description, and like I say, use NASA Pod at the checkout.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that bit done.
It is.
I believe that you might have a riddle for me today, Mr. Taylor.
I certainly do, indeed. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready for it. Yeah.
Okie dokie, here we go.
You never asked me what I've been doing this week.
No, what have you been doing this week?
So selfish.
Yeah,
Before you get into riddle, I've been killing it on.
I've
been killing it on the TikTok lives. Yeah, I've just been on the TikTok lives all week. We've got such a great community over there.
Yes.
We'll be doing some shout outs for subscribers in a moment. But yeah, we've just been kind of going on there, having some really interesting conversations surrounding DNA research with the guys over there, plus spirits, ghosts, time travel, God knows what. Yeah, so I've been really deep diving into a lot of different things with the guys over on the TikTok page. But yeah, it is really interesting. If you want to join us over there, more than welcome. We have a great little kind of live sessions going over on the TikTok as well. So there you go. Right, you riddle me this, Mr. Taylor.
Riddle me that.
You found a decent riddle for me.
I wouldn't say it was decent. I say it was all right.
Hang about.
Yeah.
Didn't you ask me a riddle last week? No, I asked you a riddle last week. You
got
it right.
You
did indeed. So come on, right, it's my turn now.
Yes,
we're on 4-1. Score to me.
Yeah, I'm hoping this one.
Pay attention, guys at home. I want to hear people shouting it out in the comments.
Yeah. Don't give him a clue.
There was people doing that. People have been kind of doing that on YouTube, especially. They'd be like throwing out just the random word, and I'm like, "What's this comment about?" Oh, it's the answer to the riddle. Okay.
Yeah, well, some people must have gotten then.
Well, they do. Yeah, there's some smart asses out there. Definitely. Right, come on. Let's see if I'm one of them.
Okay. Then. Here we go. What can you hold in your left hand, but you can't in your right?
What can I hold in my left hand, but not in my right?
Yeah.
My right hand?
No.
Oh, God.
You do that, yeah. No.
My left hand?
No.
I don't know. What can I hold in my left hand, but I can't hold in my right?
Yeah. I think I might have got him this week.
You might have got me on this one, actually.
I got a point. I'm hoping.
It's very simple. There's not much to it, is there? I mean, there's not much to contemplate on this riddle.
And I definitely can't give you a clue.
Right, okay.
Because I need to get these points.
Right, okay. Well, I don't want to leave too much dead air, you see. No, so we might have to come back to this one.
Yeah. Get your thinking cap on. And,
all right.
Let's see.
Well, moving on with the show.
Yeah.
Well, joining us on the show, we've got a returning guest. We would like to put our hands together and welcome the fabulous Kira from the award-winning podcast DNA Today. Welcome along, Kira. How have you been?
Thank you. I'm the American on the show now. So.
I know, brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, returning guest.
Bringing
I feel
my
like
boring accent on the show, just a
never.
downer.
No, not at all. Well, it's been a bit of a minute since we talked last. What have you been up to? What's been changing in on the DNA Today podcast?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we've won a couple more podcast awards since I've been on, so that's been awesome.
Right.
So thank you for anyone that is listening that ended up voting for us and nominating us. So it's cool. We've won the past 3 years, and maybe we'll win for a 4th year this year. That's pending. But yeah, the show has grown a lot, and we've just been growing our team and had some really cool people on the show recently. We've been able to record at NBC Universal too to have like an in-person setup.
That was absolutely amazing. I saw you posting, and I was so jealous. I was like, I want to go to a really nice studio and record. It was like,
you guys
looked
kind of have
after
that
you.
set up because you got the headphones, the microphone. Like, you guys can't see listening right now, but the two of them have an amazing setup. Like, you really do. So
we try.
It's I can't be there in person.
True.
So that's
a
downer.
One day, maybe.
One day we'll be at a conference together.
Exactly.
And be like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
That's it.
So obviously it's been kind of going really, really well for you with the podcast. I mean, like I've been raving on about you all week, saying, we've got a really great guest coming on, and trying to kind of get some questions from the public and see what kind of their attitude towards, the whole idea of DNA and like what. It's a bit of a weird subject because you ask the random everyday person on the street, what is it? They know the basics. They know it's the building blocks of life. But, what science is actually doing with this at the moment is quite amazing, really, isn't it? I mean, since the genome and cracking, like, the code, if you like, then it's kind of unlocked a lot of things, hasn't it? I mean, what's changing at the moment? In terms of kind of DNA research. So
since I've been on, there was a huge project that was finished that was last year in 2022. And back in 2003, I'll take it back a little bit. So we finished the Human Genome Project, at least the first draft. And so that first draft wasn't complete. So it really listed out most and mapped most of the genome, but not quite all of it. But we're like, okay, we've got to call it at some point to say like we finished the first project. And fast forward 20 years, now we have a complete human genome draft that includes very little tiny pieces that were really hard to do 20 years ago. So that is pretty major. And I think a bigger project coming out of that is looking at people of all different types of ancestries. And especially if someone has 4 grandparents from 4 different countries, so that they have a very mixed background of looking at their genetics in a pan-genome study. So that's something I learned about through some of my guests, is being an interesting study of a lot of human genomes are studied using European genomes. So it's really great to actually have human diversity in there. So it more accurately reflects the human race.
Might change a lot of things, I think, as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think do you think it's important that people kind of look into these kind of the heritages and stuff like that? Because you do see a lot of these kind of DNA sites cropping up where they're kind of saying, oh, if you send us a sample, we'll give you a swab kit. We can kind of track your ancestry and kind of tell you how much percentage of this, that, or the other there is. Do you think it's kind of one of those things that it's just quite, people just find interesting, or like to find out where they come from? Or is it kind of more important than that? Is it kind of building a bigger picture further down the line?
And is it going to get bigger?
Well, I think it probably would do, wouldn't it? But
Yeah. So I think it's mostly, I find, to just be interesting, and looking at your ancestry is a really cool thing to connect with your family about, especially extended family members. I was recently at a family party and asking one of my dad's cousins, like, tell me a little bit more about where we're from in Ireland and this and that. But it's interesting because I've done a lot of these tests over the years, a lot of the major ones. And over the years, it's gotten more specific as to where I'm from. So it used to say like, okay, Ireland, and, it kind of had that area highlighted in Ireland. And then it was like, okay, now we can say Cork, Ireland is mostly where my ancestors are from on my paternal side.
So you're starting to narrow it down even further now. Yeah.
Like Cork County. And then now it's kind of saying like, okay, East Cork, Ireland is mostly where I'm from. So it's been more exact over the years, and it does line up with family stories. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anything that's so kind of like a vast change? I mean, like you say, you've done quite a lot of these, but I mean, have you ever done one and thought, well, that totally contradicts the other one, or is it basically the same? I mean, is it so kind of accurate now that, like you say, that they can pinpoint right down to the village, never mind the country? But have you ever done one of these tests and found such vast differences that you've had to question the legitimacy of it all?
Luckily, I have not. Some are just more specific than others. So I'm like, oh, this one is probably pulling from a much bigger database than other companies and smaller companies that probably most people haven't heard of. But it's interesting because if you compare like me being very European based in terms of my ancestry compared to someone that has maybe more recent African ancestry, their ancestry is not going to get as specific as, the east part of this town like mine is, right? So that's where there's a big discrepancy. And that bleeds into a lot of healthcare, which is an issue. So, I think ancestry is very fun. If you do find out that you're, certain ancestry, you might be higher risk to have a genetic condition.
It's interesting that actually, because I mean, like, on a personal note, recently a family member said to me, like, oh, there's something in the family that at a certain age, these kind of like a maybe health thing comes up, right? Now, obviously that's come from immediate family, but if you were to kind of be able to kind of look at the bigger picture and track that back, you might be able to see, that's been happening genetically for a lot longer. And I mean, do you think that there's any kind of way of being able to correct these types of anomalies and genetic mistakes? Would you say they were mistakes? Changes?
Yeah, kind of a neutral term.
Because I was reading up on, is it the CRISPR-Cas9?
Yes, I was hoping you'd bring that up because I'm such a nerd about CRISPR. It is so cool. CRISPR,
yeah. It does sound really cool, actually, yeah. So, I mean, the article I was reading was is it David Liu? who's a chemist, he was saying that they've now got the tools to rewrite DNA errors and genetic diseases. I was just thinking, like, what would be the main sort of kind of benefits for this, for obviously, you know, I'm assuming health benefits mainly.
Yes, we can start there and then go off into, you know, science fiction land and where that might be becoming a scary reality. Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Kind of a Gattaca vibe. But yeah, so in terms of taking this CRISPR, so I guess we could back up and say what CRISPR is. So CRISPR is basically this genetic editing technology. And I think about it like being molecular scissors, where you can snap out and cut a piece of DNA out and then take a different piece of DNA and put it in. And so that original piece you took out maybe has like a mutation or what we call pathogenic variants that causes a health issue. So if we take that section out and then we put a new section in of that gene that doesn't have that mistake, then that person would theoretically be cured of that condition.
So it's kind of like editing, isn't it? I mean, it is literally like editing a piece of movie or a piece of audio, in terms of, like, you know, you have a wave or a file, and you're able to kind of chop out the bits that you don't need and replace it with healthy DNA.
But ain't we questioning that already? Ain't we got a few scientists questioning, have we had our DNA spliced already? And if it's possible to do now, then is it possible to spot the markings if it has been done before?
That's a good question. Now, we're saying we were already going into science fiction now with Taylor. So, yeah, in terms of kind
Not
of like...
even.
Oh, right. So,
exactly.
So is this science fact then? Are we able to see markers from a potential previous edit?
Yeah, so I don't know about that, but there is this interesting, like, there's been a lot of clinical trials that is actually using genetic editing and using this CRISPR technology. So a good example is a clinical trial that's happening now for sickle cell disease. Have you guys heard of sickle cell disease before? Blood disorder. So basically, for people that have sickle cell disease, their red blood cells are not the normal shape. And because it's misshapen, sickle shaped, so like a crescent moon kind of shaped, those blood cells get stuck. And so they can't move as easily as, like, let's say my blood cells can. So what causes this is one single letter change. So it's really, really, really tiny change. We've got like 3 billion letters of DNA in our bodies, in our genome. And just one of those letters is different and causes this condition. So because it's a blood disorder, what this clinical trial is doing is it's taking bone marrow cells, because that's the starting point of where blood gets made, is like bone marrow cells. So they take someone's bone marrow cells out, they CRISPR them up. That's my own term, but where they basically they take out the piece that doesn't work and put in a piece that does work of that gene. So they're basically like spell checking the gene. They put those same cells that were in that person that are now spell checked, CRISPR'd, put them back into their body, and now they can make normal red blood cells. So this is something that, it's not science fiction. Taylor was right. He was on the right track.
Fair play.
That we're doing clinical trials, and a blood condition is one of the easiest to start with, because we can actually take out bone marrow. Whereas if you think about a condition like, let's say, cystic fibrosis that mostly affects the lungs, it's also a genetic condition, but we can't just take someone's lungs out and fix all the tissue that has all those cells and then put them back in.
So
that's
with
hard.
Blood diseases, for instance, like you say, sickle cell, is that a case of the you introduced the new cells and then, like you say, it's a slow process where it'll gradually dilute, and kind of you'll get a higher percentage of regular blood cells, and then all of a sudden it'll fade it out and phase it out, right? It wouldn't be an overnight thing, would it? It'd be a case of kind of your body pumping that for creating those cells and kind of...
Right, because it's got to create them. Yeah, because you're already going to have some blood cells in you already. If you're drained of blood, then you're not able to
so it's a case of like flushing the old out and replacing them with these new genetically altered cells. I mean, what are the kind of, how does science navigate through this sort of thing? I mean, in terms of ethical implications and kind of... sitting around going, right, guys, we've got an idea, whether it's an ethically kind of sound idea or whether it's a bit taboo. How does that happen? I mean, who decides whether it's a plausible idea and it's not going to be causing any issues down the line?
Because I can imagine, like Christians would say that DNA piece was switched off for a reason, and that's why.
Well, this is the thing, isn't
that's
it? There's a lot of different ethical things you need to address before you even start a project like these sometimes, isn't it? I mean, it's really interesting, that sort of planning stage of how you kind of start a project like this, because
how to gather yourself through it, move yourself through it, where you don't actually mess up, or where there be a part where you've got to come back again and start all over again because there's been a little error here and there.
Well, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because one of the considerations and the concerns with this CRISPR is we're giving it like a GPS, like, here, go to this place in the DNA and cut. But what if it confuses it with another place? Like if you put a pizza order in for Pizza Hut and you drive, I don't even know if you guys have that in the UK.
We do, yeah, we do. We love Pizza Hut, yeah. It's one of the best pizza places.
I can't even tell you if I've ever even eaten from Pizza Hut. That really randomly came to mind. But let's say you order from there and then you go to Pizza Hut and drive up and they're like, you didn't put an order at this Pizza Hut. That must be the one on the other end of town, right? So if you're going to the wrong location and editing at that spot, you can have what's called off-target effects, where maybe the CRISPR is going to more locations than just one, or goes to the wrong location and makes an edit that can have all of these problems, right? Sickle cell is caused by one letter difference.
Exactly.
So what if CRISPR then introduce a new mutation? So that's a huge concern. And looking to see, like, with different trials, like, are we seeing any of that? And obviously, in order for it to get to the point of humans having this, it had to go through a lot of testing through just in the lab, then animals. Like, it goes through a bunch of different steps until we're like, okay, it's safe enough for humans. But we're not inserting CRISPR into someone's body. We're taking the cells out, changing it, and then putting them back in.
And everybody's different as well.
Quality control a little bit.
Everyone's DNA is different as well, because so it might work for one person the same as a pill may work for one person but might not for another.
Could it be as well that, I mean, like with Taylor just saying it might not work for certain people, but it kind of gets me thinking about computer coding, because like computer coding, we've been there where, you're trying to fix one problem and another problem occurs somewhere else. It's like troubleshooting or beta testing something to try and kind of fix all the teething issues. So, I mean, I wonder whether, if by fixing one thing, would there potentially be a kind of a cascade effect, or like a domino effect, where something else further down the line within the system kind of, like you just said there, I mean, without the religious side, without the religious aspect of it there, with you saying about some people might say there's a reason why that marker's off with you, and it could be the fact that it needed to be off because it addresses another problem within that person's system. Like, so by switching it and creating it, or trying to fix it, like, does it
create that
another problem elsewhere?
On?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, again, it's a very kind of
very delicate
system. We're all kind of like very unique people. And obviously our DNA would reflect that. Like, there is no DNA exactly the same, and that's why we're all unique snowflakes, if you like. But like the idea of it all kind of, it is very kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, like, and when you hear it on the news about kind of like these breakthroughs and what, I mean, so we've been seeing kind of a lot of stuff at the moment about lab grown meat. And how kind of genetics is being used to isolate proteins to be able to grow what people wouldn't consider it meat, but like a meat substitute, if you like. And I did come across a story, actually. I think they were taking woolly mammoth DNA, and they created
George Church is doing that.
Is that George Church? Did he create a mammoth meatball?
Maybe. I didn't see that headline, but I saw that he basically is like, I don't know exactly how he's doing it. I have to look at it again, but that using DNA to basically bring back the woolly mammoth is like his goal, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's interesting. If you had the genetic sequence, couldn't we basically, just like you write computer code, couldn't you write genetic code and then put that into cells and kind of have an incubator and you know,
like,
it's like that's where I'm like, how much of that is science fiction? How much of that is like we're actively working on and doing, right?
I think last
like,
time we talked about like Jurassic Park sort of thing, and kind of how like, you know, having parts of the DNA of kind of like mammoths and dinosaurs and stuff like that, but you'd need sort of the rest of it. So like you'd need another, closest relation, if you like.
Is the elephant is what they're going to be trying to use, and then they're going to do have an offspring, and then the DNA be more and more purer, but it will only go up to 96% pure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'd be the maximum that they calculated.
So it wouldn't ever be a true mammoth, then, would it? Would that not be considered something else?
A sample from a mammoth and then be able to sequence that and then write it. The part that I don't know is like, can we actually write the genetic code? Like if we do, like in Jurassic Park, it's been a while since I saw it, but they basically find what in a bug or something had a little bit of blood from the dinosaur, and then they were able to sequence that. And then
so it was a full, it was a full,
it was a full belly of blood,
wasn't it? It was a full piece of code, wasn't it? Rather than being able to try and find like
pieces of it and trying to get it together.
Isn't that? I always thought that though. Do you know, based on like, you know, criminology and stuff like that. You have CSI and stuff. The idea of kind of being able to kind of get a DNA sample, I always thought it was as easy as literally if you got a hair off my head, you had my full DNA on file. Is that not the case?
Potentially. Yeah, like if the hair, your hair is technically dead cells, which kind of like is hard to think about because people are like, oh, you have luscious hair or whatever, right? Like, but you know,
so you have luscious dead cells.
Yeah.
I'm losing mine.
And then, you know, you have it that if you pluck like one of my hairs or I pluck one of your hairs, you have cells at the end of that. So if you can take cells from that, then you can isolate the DNA.
So
and
literally it's the root. If you can get the root, you've got the DNA that you need, exactly, the full package.
Yeah.
So going back to this the CRISPR-Cas9, I know you're very interested in this. What do you think is going to be kind of like happening with this? Are we going to kind of see any major breakthroughs with this in the near future? Like
different directions of summit.
I mean, what avenues is it? I mean, you were saying about the sickle cell disease there, but I mean, are there any other major avenues that this is going down where it could revolutionize science or medical health or?
Yeah, I mean, even like you probably wouldn't even think of it, but in agriculture, like that's something I don't know too much about, but you know, we've been doing things of like, you know, when you have like non-GMO fruits, and I think is it in the UK you have to have it labeled?
Yes.
I feel like maybe we talked about that last time.
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah, like in the US, I don't believe you have to legally label it.
Well, actually, I think there's a new system that's come in where it actually, before it hits the manufacturer, so you don't actually have to label it.
What, here in the UK?
Yeah, everywhere. It's like a little sneaky way.
They always find a sneaky way in, don't they?
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, with the idea that they can rewrite coding, surely, I mean, in terms of like agriculture, like you say, wouldn't that mean that we were able to grow bigger crops and kind of by rewriting the code to, because this is how cross-pollination works, isn't it? You basically, you take a very strong, tall plant with a plant that fruits a lot, and we try and cross those so you get a big plant that fruits a lot, and you keep doing that until you kind of build up the best hybrid you can possibly get, I suppose.
Yeah,
so,
and it takes so long.
Exactly. So being able to kind
in a
of
real organic way.
Exactly, in a natural way, I suppose. But like it by being able to kind of say, right, yeah, if we change these two letters in the sequence, then it'll make the tomatoes 5 times the size. Yeah. That's really kind of like interesting to think, really.
Yeah, but then you've also got to think, it might be 5 times the size, but then it's going to be taking 5 times the amount of nutrients out of that area. So it's going to be like that area, let's say 50 years, it is now going to be 25 years or even less because it's taking too much.
I suppose that just kind of like
ends up the add-on effects.
Adding, like it forces their hand into using more feeds and, unnatural fertilizers.
And it takes away natural... It's sort of DNA messing around with this kind of stuff takes away the natural environment, and which if we mess around with it too much, it's going to change our environment so much by just one little thing. I can kind of see the
advantages, right?
Definitely.
Of using genetic modification in agriculture to an extent. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of controversy behind GMO foods, and people don't really kind of want to eat them if they can help it, or we've talked about this on the show a couple of times, but in terms of world hunger, if we had the capacity to be able to produce more than we needed, so everybody was fed, isn't that a good thing? Wouldn't you say that was a goal worth kind of having?
Yeah, but I don't think food's the problem. I think greed's the problem. I don't think foods. If the land would be abundant for us, but the problem is the big manufacturers who come in and take it away. That's where I think the problem is. It's not actually the natural environment. It's the greedy people who come in and go, well, I can earn a lot of money out of this. I could get people some jobs and have power, so I could take more of what you've got.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I can see that.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point that you brought up, like a tomato, because I remember reading about certain tomatoes, and I'm not going to know what kind, but basically in order for it to not freeze as easily, because let's say you have an early frost or something, and you're like, well, now all the crops are bad. That farmers/scientists basically took a gene from a fish that swims in really, really, really cold waters, and it like basically allows, this gene is related to allowing them to still be able to live in those really extreme temperatures, and they put it in the tomato so that the tomato would be able to still be growing in colder temperatures.
That's crazy.
So I think that's just an example of like.
But what's the effect to us?
Say that again, Taylor?
Yeah, some slightly tuna-smelling tomatoes.
You know what I mean? Because the effect, it's great for the tomato. It's done its job, what it's supposed to have done. But that genetic's going to get passed on to us. And then we're going to pass it on to the environment as well.
Maybe. I mean, we're basically like, whenever you eat a food, you're breaking it down in little parts so that you can like use the energy and everything. Yeah. And then you just kind of get rid of the rest. But yeah, that's an interesting question just in terms of like what are the studies of eating GMO foods versus non-GMO foods, and is there any health implications with that?
They always say long-term.
You guys should find someone to come on the show to talk about that. That would be interesting. Yeah. I would listen to
that. How in terms of that, I mean, that would be kind of an interesting one, because I mean, I wonder what the research behind that is. Like in terms of like, how long do they kind of study these things in terms to try and get a benchmark of what is harmful and what's not? So. They introduce something and say, right, this is the next greatest thing. It's going to revolutionize agriculture. It's going to make everybody not starving. We're all going to have food on the table. But then how long do they need to wait before they start seeing issues, or addressing that there's an issue?
It always seems to be long term because you can't get it short.
Well, you can't get the statistics, and there's not enough studies, is there, over that period, over a short period of time. Whereas, like over, say, a 50-year mark, you can say, well, there's been numerous studies. We believe that X, Y, Z. Yeah,
but by then it's possibly too late, and the
100%, 100%.
That's where my issue is mainly, that the studies aren't strong enough and long enough to actually then turn around and go, right, it should go out to society.
Okay, right. Well, moving on, I've got a question about this I find really quite interesting. DNA computing. Do you know anything about this? Because basically, like, from what I gather, being able to write information on a strand of DNA,
yeah.
I mean, save data and stuff
like
that.
Save data.
You could.
Files, yeah.
So
yeah, because you think about it, like we were mentioning, like, computer coding and all that, like computers are in binary, like ones and zeros. And that's about all I know. But, when
So
you compare that to
thing.
DNA, yeah, I'm like, that's all my brother's stuff. I don't know that stuff. But when you compare it to DNA has 4 letters. So it has double the capacity, I would think, in terms of how much it's able to like store and in the complexity of it. When you have just binary versus, I don't know, quad something, then you just have more availability. And there's a, getting into science fiction a little bit, there's a very cool TV show that turned into a podcast called Orphan Black. And it's a Canadian show, and it ran for about 5 years, and it explores this concept as well as a ton of other concepts. It's like my favorite TV show of all time. Obviously, right? Because I'm a total genetic nerd. That was made.
It sounds like I'm actually like, where can I find this? It sounds amazing.
Yeah. I was actually our 250th episode of DNA Today. I interviewed one of the writers for the podcast spinoff. So that was really cool. I just got to nerd out with her for a while, and learn about all the actor and writer strikes in America. So that's kind of been crazy over here.
Yeah.
But you got to imagine, like, data is the age that we're in right now. Data is so valuable. Companies that have huge banks of data, like that is just worth so much. And being able to store that data, that's going to become a bigger and bigger problem as we begin to have even more and more of it, right? Like, isn't everybody paying for data in some sense, right? Like Google, I surpass a thing. So I'm like, all right, I pay for 100 gigs right now, right? But like, is there a way that we can kind of tap into that, and how could we use it? Like, that's a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, imagine being able to just plug your finger into a USB and watch a movie.
No.
Or something like that, because you've got all this, all these information. Yeah, I reckon sometime in the future, but like being able to store this sort of data within our DNA is fascinating. I feel like if we're able to kind of, like you say, break that down into the ones and zeros. And so do you think, like, like you've just said there, in terms of the double the capacity, have we got storage space? I mean, that's the difference, isn't it? I mean, it's like, if our DNA is able to carry even more data than it already is, then
can we get a side gig? I can just walk around being a storage unit.
Exactly. Yeah. It kind of suggests that there is more storage than necessary within our DNA. It's quite
like a transporter.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
In terms of like, we could just kind of pump all of human histories into one guy.
Well, it stopped school, wouldn't it, really?
Just write a book and have it be in DNA, and then in order to read it, like, you've got to have someone sequence your genome or something. I don't know. I feel like we're writing a great novel right now. Like,
that's a
we're really coming
movie.
up with good material.
That is a sci-fi movie in itself.
That'd be interesting to get rid of schools to actually implant. Well, subject it into the DNA.
It's not knowledge,
to actually
is it?
Get the knowledge out of it.
You'd have to access it.
You'd have to access it. That's
one port.
It's like a storage locker.
Yeah.
So it's like having a pen drive, isn't it? I mean, unless you've got the laptop or the medium to kind of to use it, then
like
it's
an
just
Avatar. I haven't seen the new one yet, but how they connect their like neurons to like the horse's neurons, so that they're connected. Like at least in the first one from 2009 or something.
I
remember seeing that, and I was like, that makes sense. Like then you can, if you have a thought, it literally goes through your nervous system to the animal that you're physically connected with. I thought that was the coolest concept in that whole movie. I was like, I can't believe I haven't seen the second one yet, but you figure like there's got to be ways to tap into this.
I mean, we were having a bit of a wild kind of conversations in here, but I mean, what are the kind of common misconceptions people have about like DNA and genetics in general, do you think?
Yeah, I think one thing that, as you were kind of like pointing to, is when people have something in their family and they're like, oh, well, everybody, and they'll use hyperboles, and they'll say like, oh, everybody dies at 50 in my family from, a heart attack or something. Like, so I'm going to die at 50. And it's like, that's not necessarily the case. It's something to really be concerned about and see a healthcare provider about and talk to and see if there's prevention there. But your family history is not necessarily your fate. I think it's very helpful to know and follow up with, but sometimes that can give you the trigger to say, I'm going to go see a healthcare provider and, let's see a lot of people in your family die from cancer early, like 30, 40s.
I think that's the doctor's fault because the doctors were mostly putting it about for that kind of stuff. So you'd go there and go, well, check out your history. Yeah, it's through your history. You know, you got to be more careful and all that. And it's like, yeah, but it might not happen to me. I might be the one that jumps.
I'll be honest with you. You are correct, yeah, because most of the time they'll ask, one of the questions they do ask you is, do you have any family history of this, that, and the other? And you are like, kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Ringing up your grandparents, trying to find out what's going on with
putting the frighteners on you, which will make you ill anyway.
What did Uncle Jeff die of back in 1982?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know, like, and stuff like this, and it's it does kind of put the frighteners on you, but like you say, genetics isn't as kind of clear cut as that. I mean, there are kind of look at being kind of a redhead. Yeah, a recessive gene.
Yeah, the new gene.
That's a gene that doesn't show up in every generation of your DNA.
Yeah, I got a brother who's a ginger. I don't put it against him, but and I did come out ginger, so I don't know what went wrong there.
But like I say, it could be the fact that you might have family history of an illness or kind of like high risk of kind of like heart defects or whatever, but you might not. Yeah. Exactly. Do you know what I mean? You might be the one that has that recessive gene and it just doesn't transmit to you. Potentially as well, because you've got both sides of the fence, haven't you? You've got your mother's genes and your father's genes. So if, obviously there is an issue with you on your father's side, potentially.
Your mother's side might actually cure it.
You might carry the gene on your mother's side, and again, you miss that sort of thing, even though there is family history. I mean, it's interesting.
It is.
It'd be interesting for a double as well if you both parts of the family had got that gene. Would it actually create something else as well as that issue with that gene?
So that's how like sickle cell works that we were talking about earlier, and cystic fibrosis. So like if your parents or if you were donor conceived or whatever the situation is, the egg and sperm that created you, like if those gametes, we call them, had one broken copy of the gene and one working copy, but only passed you down the non-working copy, the broken one.
Yeah.
Then you don't have a working copy because we have 2 copies of each gene. So that's how people get sickle cell. So if their parents are both carriers of it, where they have one working, one non-working, that's how they can inherit the both non-working copy, and then they have the condition. So that would be like the recessive condition. Yeah. But then you have dominant conditions, and there's even like certain character traits, like you can kind of see the 3 of us are on video, but you can kind of see I have a widow's peak where like my hair kind of goes like almost like it's, like vampires will have that.
I've got one of those. Taylor's got that as well. I've got that as well. Don't worry.
So that if I look at my parents, at least one of them has it because I believe that's dominant. So that's something that's simple. That's not a health condition. That's more of just an interesting thing. But same if you have detached or attached earlobes.
Like we might have talked about
that last time.
Yeah. That's a good indication. Like,
of what?
It's like, actually, I don't think he's your father or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's one of them. It's an indicator.
Everyone's checking their earlobes now, aren't they? Yeah, I can tell.
Right.
Like,
and both of my parents have detached, so it's kind of like, okay, yeah,
going
like,
on
makes sense,
pulling the kids' ears.
Yeah. You got one. Yeah, you're right. You're mine.
Never knew that. I'm sure you've mentioned it last time, but maybe I forgot that.
Or like blood type. Like if you look at your blood type and then your parents, hopefully it matches up and it all makes sense.
Yeah, that's where everyone usually goes to, and it's not like the earlobe.
I mean, we probably did talk about this as well last time, but I know you're aching to talk about the hybrid theory in terms of kind of, you mentioned it earlier about like kind of whether our DNA has been tampered with in the past, whether
kind of spliced through. There's quite a few studies coming out that our DNA has been taken out. It's like they got the DNA monkey and they got our DNA, and it looks perfectly right, but added I think 3 bars of 2 in there. And the belief is that between the 5,000 year supposed difference of where we come from, before our brains got to where it has,
like fully developed.
Yeah, got into the developed stage, that it was spliced and thrown in there.
So basically,
beforehand.
he's asking, what are the chances of us being kind of alien human hybrids? You
Alien
Can't rule it out, right?
messing about. Yeah. Well, we're doing it now, to be honest. So I suppose you can do it.
Well, no, you're right. In terms of like what is possible, right? Like you were saying earlier about science fiction, yeah. The realms of DNA research to us now is relatively new. We're only just kind of cracking that code and working out what we can do with it, what's ethically sound to do with it, what's not, what we should be doing with it, what we shouldn't be doing with it. Whereas if this technology's been kind of, if there is other life forms out there who are way more technologically advanced than us, chances are they've probably cracked this long time ago. Yeah.
Right. Their own like genetics and how that works
Yeah.
and, curing.
That's
You
why
got to
they want
figure
us.
I got to think we're not the most intelligent life forms out there.
No.
Like, I don't, it's a big universe. How are we it? Right.
Yeah, we can't. It
100%.
can't. But then again, I always got to think at the back of my mind is something has to start from somewhere.
Right.
So it could be we're actually the first, and it's our duty and our job to expand out there. And we've probably already done it generations beforehand, and then coming back. But then again, I also got to think that there's more of a chance that there's loads more aliens in the universe. It's just that we're not in that
my only problem
area.
with it. My only problem with it is like if you were dropped on a planet, or if you were kind of like manipulated into kind of like becoming a new species
to that planet, yeah.
And you were a primitive life form, and then all of a sudden you've been kind of like tested on and stuff like that. Like we were talking about the blood kind of being pumped out your body, and then being replaced with the new cells. It'd be a slow process. It wouldn't be like an overnight transformation. It'd be a case of that like
evolution takes a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be like rather they were introduced on a more natural level. So they were brought in, and then these kind of like two tribes or two kind of like different species interacted and became like, genetically had children and offspring, and the genetic makeup was transmitted that way. Or like you kind of think they were beamed up onto the spaceship, manipulated by gene splicing and whatever, and then plopped back down on Earth. But
It's
I feel
a
like
possibility.
the first one might have been a more like simpler way of doing it, to be honest. You know what I mean?
My question is, so humans have supposedly grown from apes. Now, apart from insects, can you name me any more species that has done that?
That have
Changed from one
transitioned
species
from something else
to another.
Yeah, like you can look at this like evolutionary tree and basically see where species have branched off and become different things. So I think dogs is a great example of this.
Yes.
So we have what is that called? Domesticated or whatever, like dogs.
Yeah, we totally domesticated wolves, basically, haven't we?
Like a Labradoodle, right? Like that would not exist, right? You have a Labrador and a poodle. How would they ever get together, right? So that's us messing with things, right?
Yeah.
And you have all of these breeds
never
of
survive in
dogs
the
where
wild.
we used to only have probably a handful, right? But it's like, oh, golden retriever, like I'm sure in the past, like developed that because they were really good at like hunting and like, oh, go get the bird that I just shot, right? So I think that's a good example of just within the last few hundred years, maybe 1,000 years or something, that humans have meddled with it in not a test tube lab way, but just like, oh, let's mate these two dogs because one's really smart and one's really big, right?
But not to the degree of from an ape to a human, no.
Well, you're talking like
that's a
developing
development.
consciousness and like a kind of a societal structure, and kind of changing so much, like going from primitive animals to having a society. That's one change, but I mean that wouldn't have come without kind of our brain development, really.
Yeah, which supposedly had come from when we were eating meat, and now at the stage that we do eat a lot of meat, we're actually
turning
it
not.
round
we're going
that
away
way.
from
Yeah,
meat
exactly. Which will,
depending who you talk to.
Yeah.
Depending on who you talk
which
to.
in a way that's not going to be great for our brains or our bodies, because it was actually supposedly the meat that actually give the process to get where to the stage where we are at now.
Do you think?
Yeah.
So, like the proteins from meat,
Yeah,
from eating.
it was that change that.
Well, again, but we know that
change.
as a science now.
Yeah.
So, like, this is what goes back to kind of like developing lab-grown meats and proteins.
Yeah, which
using
turns it
this
reverses.
type of kind of this sort of science, of kind of manipulating genes and DNA of one thing to make it into a totally different thing. Do you know what I mean? And the idea of kind of cloning, I mean, I was asking people the other day about what they thought of cloning.
Yeah.
And, most people were like, oh, well,
Dolly the sheep.
yeah, it wouldn't be that bad thing. You'd have kind of, and I was like, well, think about it in terms of overpopulation.
Exactly.
I mean, if we all started kind of cloning each other, having a Sunday best, and like,
I guarantee we would
one of
use
us
them
to
as
go
slaves.
to work and one of us to stay home and relax.
Because we
That's like that TV show Severance on Apple.
Oh,
where
right,
you
not
have-
seen that.
Yeah, it's where I'm forgetting the guy's name, but basically they make a clone, or no, they basically turn their brain on and off, so like you only can access the non-work version of yourself or the work version.
Oh,
so
right,
it's like
okay.
you like dormant within yourself. It's a really interesting. So it's not a body clone, but it's kind of like a mind
Switch.
separation.
You need to have a look at Living with Yourself, which is on Netflix. I think.
Yeah, that's with
That's,
oh my God, Paul
Paul
Rudd.
Rudd, yeah, which is a clone.
That's another great
It's
one.
about
Can you
being
tell I watch
cloned.
too much TV?
I
All I've
watch
been
a lot of
recommending is
TV.
TV.
I
Yeah,
try
it's all
not
good, don't
watching
worry.
much.
No, but that's really good, because basically what happens there is he goes to a spa and they say, we'll make you the best version of yourself, right? Then what they do is they clone you, take out all the negative feelings and stuff you've been having, and then they kill the original and send out this brand new feeling amazing clone, yeah? And that's basically the treatment.
I'd have to question if that was actually be you.
Well, no, it is. Well, this is what the whole show's
Yeah,
about.
What makes
Yeah,
you.
exactly. I mean, the
And
thing
I wouldn't
is,
have thought so.
would a clone, say if I was to clone you now, Taylor, you could be both going off on totally different branches.
Yeah.
Your clone might not want to do exactly what you want to do at the exact moment you want to do it. So
Better
are you
off
then
pushing
the
off a
same
ledge.
person? So you're only a clone up
Yeah.
until the point that you've been cloned. Like at that moment of being cloned, you're identical. But as soon as you start making your own decisions, you're not a clone anymore. You're a different person having different experiences to the original. So
Isn't that
You're
sort
almost
of
just
like
like
the
a twin at
internet?
that point.
Yeah,
'Cause
you're
twins
more
have
like
a twin.
identical DNA, but they're their own people.
yeah.
But in the way, isn't that like the internet? In a way,
How do you mean? Go on.
it's a kind of right. Well, we've introduced this system into our environment, and it's grown into this massive thing that actually
No, I think
we
that's
can't do
that's
anything
just something
without
else.
it.
I think that's a totally different thing. Where it's like, we've just unleashed that on the world, and now it's grown into something totally different, which is kind of on the same
Yeah.
lines. I do kind of get where you're going with. The idea,
Got an original,
the
now
idea
you've
that
got an
you-
upgrade.
Well, yeah, but the original's not running around as normal. You'd
Yeah.
be the original. If I cloned you, you would be the original. But
Yeah.
then your clone, you couldn't really kind of like put your foot down and say you're not allowed to do that. It's his own
Because
person.
they also would think they're the original.
Exactly.
Yeah.
who's to
That
say-
makes it dangerous. That then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
could say who was the original?
Oh.
How can you prove it? You know?
Again, and
You'd
this,
have to have some kind of marker, wouldn't you? I remember a
big tattoo
program
on
where
your
it had,
head.
No, it had like a lump on the back of your neck, and if you had that lump, that was to say that you were a clone.
Or like, yeah, you skinned your knee as a kid and you've got a scar there, whereas the clone won't have that because
Yeah.
that's not in your
well, yeah,
DNA.
because
That's the environment.
that's exactly it. Yeah, whereas like, or a tattoo or any ink
yeah.
or any sort of markings that you've created on your body during your life, a clone wouldn't have those because they would be cloned in a way that is your a genuine initial DNA.
Unless you put it in there, I suppose you could also with that using that you could
He's getting really
secretly
deep now.
go off and put your life as going on, but as the clone, and you go off anonymous around rest around the world.
You do that, Taylor. I'm pretty sure
Well,
that I've
no,
got
no,
one
but
already.
I can
Now I'm pretty
imagine
sure that
devious people.
I've got the clone.
I can imagine devious people would do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people would do that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And
then they fell
cloning
off
is
the
real.
cliff.
Like we had, I forget what year it was. I want to say it was the 90s that Dolly the sheep was cloned. And like that was a big thing where it's like it literally was a clone. So like we have the technology. So it's really just like comes back to that question that Gaz brought up. Like, should we do this or not?
It is. There's so many ethical. I mean, I think even with the Dolly the sheep thing, there was a lot of people kind of going, wait a minute, I don't think you're allowed to do that.
But yeah, like that was a big deal.
There's different countries that have different, like takes on these things. And I think as soon as we start kind of venturing out into space, where, the worries and things that we have on Earth, they're out of the window. The rules that govern us here on Earth, like in terms of like what's ethical in sort of science,
big talks about it actually.
I think that's probably why what a lot of stuff goes on the like places like the International Space Station, because obviously it's kind of like it's off world, isn't it? So I mean, in terms of like what you do.
Well, things go off in forests in the world, so you don't necessarily have to leave the world, but it'd be easier.
Go find an island that doesn't belong to a country.
It'd be easier to get into a ship and go off somewhere, and you've got some slaves or do whatever you're going to be doing. You know what I mean? So it is going to be one of them that, like, I suppose we're going to have to count how many people leave and if they're in the right condition and leaving and stuff like that. But then, how do we do that? We can't even control our own bloody borders at the minute, you know what I mean? So
true.
How can we control space? And there's a big space race on at the minute. You know what I mean? It's only getting bigger. I mean, like Russia's just started off again. You know what I mean? So
we were talking,
and you guys would know being at NASA.
Well, that's it. We've got to keep it under our right. You know what I mean?
He actually goes around telling people he works for NASA.
Yeah, every time I see someone with NASA, it's like, you work for me.
What was I going to say? We were discussing the other week regarding like genetic mistakes in science, in terms of kind of like lab testing and stuff like this. There is a lot of reports and kind of stories emerging out of the Russian oceans around like the Black Sea and kind of the Baltic, of creatures being spotted that are rather throwbacks from another era or potential
new species
or even genetic experiments that have been kind of thrown into the ocean to kind of, I don't know, mistakes that they've flushed down the toilet, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, where do you stand on this stuff? I mean, what's the procedure in terms of like getting rid of this stuff? I mean, like, surely they don't just flush it down the toilet.
I mean, I'm not aware of any crazy genetic experiments where they're flushing it, but who knows, right? If I don't know about it, doesn't mean they're not happening, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've heard a lot in terms of like, we were talking about space and that we're exploring so much in space, but then it's like even our own oceans, when it goes like really, really deep, like we can't access that. Like we don't even know really what's there.
Is it the
and
trench?
I think that's so interesting. And you got to think there's got to be a lot of diversity in terms of like different like new species we don't know about and could be like little tiny like bacteria kind of stuff. It may like
we're finding
we don't know
things
about,
every day,
I'm sure.
aren't we now?
There was a story we read actually this week of a new bacteria that they've just discovered.
Yes.
A gentleman was bit by a stray cat here in the UK. When he went to the hospital with these wounds, they basically give him antibiotics. He said that he was fine, sent him home. 2 days later, they were cutting flesh off the guy's arm for testing. They basically isolated it as a new bacteria that they've never seen before. In terms of kind of like evolution and kind of new strains of things, it's rather that we've never noticed these things before and they've always been here, or they are new variations or kind of like genetic kind of...
There's a lot of variations all the time.
Newbies. Sort of thing coming up.
A lot of it dies.
And it's probably a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Like some it's like actually new and some were just like we didn't have the technology to really identify it as being different before or like all of that. But I think it's interesting, like even when we talk about like antibiotics, like bacteria evolves just like we do, but kind of faster because obviously their generations are faster than we are, right? We're pretty slow when it comes to reproducing. So when it comes to that, it's like they're able, whatever, if you take antibiotics, you're going to kill most of that bacteria, right? But there might be a couple that fight it and kind of live past that, and then they're going to reproduce, and then that's going to be antibiotic resistant.
Yeah.
So that's what's a scary concept, that it's like we're giving so many antibiotics, like are we just going to create
I was only talking about
Massive
this yesterday
problem.
in terms of like, not always jump into the antibiotics and trying to ride it out yourself and let your own immune system take care of it, because the more you do take antibiotics, the more you become immune to them. So when you do really need them, your body's just going to go, well, what's this? We're used to this already, and we've had this, and it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
And just try not to kind of jump straight to them. But it's just, I find it fascinating that there's so many things being found now, like in terms of like genetic abnormalities in new species and new bacteria and stuff like this. And this is why I asked about kind of like those things that are found in the oceans and things like that, because, would you say that a lot of this could be down to human interaction and human sort of,
messing about, playing around,
being
with stuff
sort
they
of
don't
like,
understand.
rather stuff like Chernobyl, like go back to the Russia thing, but I mean, like Chernobyl happened, and these isotopes in the soil, these kind of like nuclear material around. I was reading a story about how that actually was affecting the dogs in the Chernobyl area, because obviously the people evacuated, but the wildlife stayed.
Yeah.
So, the average canine doesn't heed a DNA one and not walking around with a Geiger counter. So, it just wander into these areas. And, there's been a lot of tests on the wildlife in the surrounding area. And they reckon that the DNA of dogs has fundamentally changed. Like, because as a result, at least in that area, exactly.
And
so
if it affects their eggs or sperm, then it's like, then you're going to pass that down to other generations. If it doesn't affect that, then you're just going to have like those dogs die out, and then it ends there. But if they pass it down, like that's what gets scary with, anything that is affecting DNA and passing that down, because then it's in the future, it's in that population,
and we might not be able to turn back on it. That's
right.
that's the scariest thing, that we haven't got we're not going to have the cure straight away to we're sorry. Yeah, we could just do this.
Well, that leads me to one of my last questions anyway. I mean, what ethical guidelines and regulations should govern these type of practices when it comes to stuff like cloning, genetic mapping and genetic research, especially when it comes into kind of like implementing these type of ideas going forward? What do you think? I'm assuming that there's some real red tape that you have to go through to kind of even start a project like the Crispin project or something like that.
Right. So it's interesting because there are genetic societies that get together from different countries and will meet and talk about, okay, what is, acceptable? What is a line that we should draw and not cross at this time? And revisit that. And one of that is doing genetic editing in embryos. So I don't know if we talked about it last time.
I think we did, because we were talking about kind of like the idea of being able to kind of choose the eye color of your child, or if it's going to be athletic, or if it's going to be a genius or whatever, having a designer baby, exactly.
And that scientist in China just like went ahead again. He didn't tell his university what he was doing. He created like these, I don't want to say designer babies, because that makes it sound like he did a lot of things. He basically just edited one gene. But now we were aware of twin girls that have this, that have to be 4 or 5 years old by now. And so if they have biological children, they're going to pass down this change. And it was a whole uproar in the genetics community. Like, they literally were going to a conference to talk about this, and a guy went up there and was like, I already did it. And it was like, mic drop. Yeah, it was a big deal. People were like, what? Like, it was wild.
I believe another one's been found. I believe another one this year's been found.
Really?
Yeah.
From that same guy, or
no, I think from someone else. Because I think that's the thing. Problem.
Like, it's so easy to use that. How can you prevent people from doing this? Even like it wasn't allowed where he was doing it, But I'm sure there's how many countries are there in the world? Like there's got to be some countries where there aren't laws. And so couldn't a scientist just relocate?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
So that's what I worry about.
And this is the thing. It's like, you know, in terms of kind of like what's legal and what's the law in the Western world, there's certain countries around the world that, like I say, that like you've just said there, they don't have the same rules. So you can rather relocate, or they've got their own programs going on where, you know, they're just doing it. Like you said with the guy who just went, he's attended a conference and just said, oh, what you're talking about, this is theoretical, but I've actually done it. Yeah. Right. What stops people doing these things in the future, but also what stops the mistakes from being made in the future as well? Because if it's not regulated, then there's a way higher chance for error. Even if it is regulated,
like you say, no matter what it is, no matter whatever we're going to end up bringing out, someone's going to do it and someone's not going to do it. And that's the problem.
Or do it correctly.
Well, either way, yeah. But whoever's going to do it, and obviously there's going to be a lot of them where they're not actually going to have the finance or, you know, the proper equipment for it and all that. And that's where mistakes happen, and then it goes in the environment, and then it carries on from there.
Wow, it's a
roller coaster.
It's a scary world we live in, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, I'm glad that we've got you to help us navigate through this all this
I'm your American genetics expert to come on the show.
This is true. We'll hopefully, if you know, obviously next we'll keep an eye on the news, and if anything else changes, we'll be certain to make a note of it for the next time.
Well, actually, I've got a quick question. I've just heard this, so I want to see if you've heard anything about this, about a new bird flu that's been going around. Apparently,
I've seen headlines, and that's about as much as I know about it. Yeah,
it's like 58 million birds in America died. I think worldwide, I think something like 200 million. But it's also hit dogs, cats, even.
Oh my God! Well, I did see it at the park actually, because I was at the lake a couple of days ago, and there was a notice up about bird flu saying, please do not pick up feathers off the floor and do not feed the animals at the moment because this is happening. But like
they're looking at it as well, and they've already got a name for it. It's X.
No, that's not what.
No. Twitter's new name.
No, he's right. No, this is something that I seen, and I totally commented on this guy, right? So can I just put this to bed for everybody who's listening at home, right? When they call the disease on the internet disease X. Yeah, this is a placeholder name, for the next big thing. Yes. Yeah, it doesn't mean that they have discovered a disease and it's called X, right?
Insert
it means it's insert here. It means when they find the next thing, that'll replace the X, right? At the moment, they've not found it, right? Yeah. And let me just assure everybody at home, there is no disease X, Yes, let me just tell you all that now. Right, so thank you, Taylor.
You're welcome.
Right, anyway, Kira, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on again. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's always fun just like sitting around and just like pontificating with you guys and just exploring. And like, I kind of like that we don't have an agenda.
Exactly.
We just chit chat and see where it takes us. Like it's a very laid back show. I enjoy it.
Oh, thank you so much. So what's next for you? What's happening with you at the moment? And have you got any projects going on at the minute? Tell us what you're up to.
Yeah. So I realized I launched a new podcast since I've talked with you guys. So I am the executive producer on a podcast called It Happened to Me.
Ooh,
it's about rare diseases and medical challenges. And I guest host sometimes, but I'm mostly behind the scenes editing and producing. And it's co-hosted by two lovely women who are retired lawyers, and they are very smart. And they both experience medical challenges. So it's really interesting. They talk to a lot of scientists and also patient advocates and a lot of things related to blindness, as they both experience various levels of that.
Excellent.
So it's an interesting show, and they are also nominated for Podcast Award.
So maybe we can get one day.
Yeah. One day.
What's this podcast called then, and where can people find it?
It's called It Happened to Me. And you can find it on all major podcast players. I also have a link on my own website, dnatoday.com. But that's been a newer project. But always fun kind of diving into other shows and doing more.
Well, it's always brilliant having you on, and we always kind of find a lot to talk about. So thank you so much for joining us, Kira.
Thank you so much, Taylor and Gaz. It was really fun coming on.
Take care. We'll see you again.
All right, bye.
Well, thank you so much to Kira for joining us again on the show. It was, as you can, I think that was such an interesting conversation. She's so nice, Kira.
Always a great conversation with her,
isn't it?
Really
and if you want to check out Kira's podcast, you can go over to DNA Today. She's got a website. I think it's dnatoday.com.
Yeah, it is.
Check it out. She's always got great guests on. And if you're into that sort of sciencey stuff,
I definitely recommend it.
I do recommend it.
Yeah,
we've got some sciencey stories coming up in the news.
We have.
But first, I'm going to give everyone the shout-outs.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much to our subscribers. Thank you so much to Holly.
Yes, Holly. How you doing,
big up to Josh.
Yo, Josh.
Giving a big shout-out to Jess.
Jess.
Oliver, well done, mate. Thank you so much. He's actually changed his name.
Has he? All right.
Yeah, to Gaz is my favourite. For some reason.
Because he hasn't met me yet.
He hasn't met Taylor yet. Jag, thanks so much for subscribing.
Thanks,
Elvis, Joe,
John,
Benjamin, and who else was it? There was, also, big shout out to, I forgot his name now. No, because he only subscribed yesterday. And he's got a crazy screen name. He's called... I'll come back to it. I will give him a shout out. I do apologise for not remembering your name.
Yeah.
We will give you double shout outs next week. But he only subscribed last night. So, you know what I mean? I didn't actually add him to the list. But
if you get in there nice and early, we can give you a shout out.
You do get a shout out if you're a subscriber. So, think about it. We do have subscriptions on Spotify and TikTok, as well as, the free subscription of this podcast. So, it's pretty awesome stuff. Right, Taylor.
Yeah.
Your riddle.
Yes.
I knew I'd have to get round to it eventually. Now, I've been racking my brain here now.
You have?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, I can touch most things in the physical world. Yeah, right, with both hands, right? Just reach out and grab it. Yeah, right. So I'm assuming that this has got to be something on my person, right? And I think, I might have this. Is it my elbow?
You're a wanker. That's what I was going to say on that one. Because I even try to put you off about
oh my God. I can't believe I got it right. I was thinking it's got to be something, but I can literally was going scouring my body parts trying to work out what I couldn't touch with my left hand.
Oh, I'm not happy now. That's
5-1. Right, well, I'm going to give you an easy one next week to try and help you catch up, I think. No mercy. Or anything like that, you know what I
mean? My next one's going to be definitely fucking...
He's going to try and go for... You're going to have to put a bit of more effort into these riddles. I thought that was a really good one, actually.
Yeah,
if you got it at home, well, congratulations.
Yeah, good show.
I can't believe I got that right. I was expecting you to say no. Right. I was expecting you to say no, but then your reaction then just said it all. Yeah. I've got to say, thank you so much.
You're a wanker.
Well... I'm a wanker. I'm a wanker.
I can't believe that.
Anyway, right. Yeah. Moving on. We've got some news, I believe.
We have.
Well, we'll hit straight into that because I can't believe I've just got that riddle right. But let's go. It's the news. Big news tonight. Gaz is a smart ass. Well, profanity's much. I know this is an over 18s podcast, but anyway, we've scoured the World Wide Web as usual to try and find you the latest and greatest news, the weirdest news, and just random stuff that's happening on the globe. Yeah. Yes, that's right. I said globe.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, first story I found, which I found this absolutely amazing. Yeah, okay. Right. This is new research that's coming out of Scientific America. This has been shown on an article on Scientific America. Okay. Research about the brain. Yeah. All right. Sticking with the body and the, I feel like we're having a kind of a whole genetic episode here going. Yeah. But obviously, the brain impact, obviously there's a lot of kind of things we don't understand about the brain. Yeah. But scientists are talking about kind of like developing implants for people who have kind of like memory issues, who have kind of like speech issues and sight issues and stuff like that. Yeah, there's so many kind of avenues where they can kind of feel the benefits of this technology. Scientists have now done a new study analysing data from 29 people who were already being monitored for epileptic seizures. Yeah. Right? They have been able to isolate a song in brainwaves, right?
Oh.
So they've been able to recreate a Pink Floyd 1979 song, Another Brick in the Wall.
Had to be a Pink Floyd one.
Well, I mean, psychedelic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they've been able to isolate the song, Another Brick in the Wall, in neurons, in
mad.
electrical brain signals, and actually rebuilt the song from this data.
So they freshly built the song.
Well, think about how... So, do you know when you think about music and you have songs in your head?
Yeah.
It sounds like you can hear all the instruments, you can hear the vocals, you can hear the percussion, you can hear every element of the song. And if you've listened to that song so many times that it's embedded in your mind, you can kind of listen to it in your head, really, can't you?
Yeah.
Right? This has always fascinated me, right, in terms of kind of like what your brain's capable of. Now, if you think about how, you know, your brain works, it's firing off neurons and electrons and kind of like making pathways, right? So by analysing this data, they can reconstruct what the memory is. Yeah. So this this is really, really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because obviously this kind of opens up more than just being able to kind of like, there's so many scientific possibilities and even science fiction possibilities. Now, imagine taking a secret to your grave. Yeah. And or imagine taking a secret, carrying it with you, and then someone was able to analyze your brain's functions and your brain activity to basically extract that.
Yeah, but
I mean, if they can do it with a Pink Floyd song, they can do it with anything.
True, but then you've got to think of the possible consequences of, you know.
Obviously, there's some sort of.
Someone wants your
The fact is, there's no brain activity after the fact. Yeah. So you'd need to be able to analyze these people while they were alive. Yeah, and anyone who had a secret probably wouldn't be like up for sharing it, sharing the data.
Then use. You know,
maybe.
It could be used for such
nefarious purposes.
Things,
yeah, exactly.
Especially like in government agencies.
I do believe it's a really fascinating study.
It is.
But like they basically be able to capture electrical activity in several human in several brain regions, and been able to extract musical elements such as tones, rhythms, harmonies, and lyrics.
That's good. So they
that
can
is
actually get
absolutely
speech then.
Crazy.
That's mad.
The whole song, they've been able to rebuild the whole song. Now that's just remarkable for me. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this one.
Yeah.
Because in terms of like breakthroughs, this is up there, isn't it? This is kind of like in terms of understanding our brain and being able to help people who have difficulties in these certain areas, as long as you don't abuse the technology, then
I'd say it's strong enough to be like when the first computer was ever built. You know what I mean? It could be that strong.
Well, it's crazy because we were only just talking to Kira about DNA computing, and how our DNA might actually have the capacity to store extra data.
Yeah,
double
the
the data than it actually already carries.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we could be walking around as human USB drives and we were able to access that data,
actually looking for things to put on, because glass, diamonds, also carbon.
Well, obviously
loads
silicon.
Of stuff they've been using.
We've been using silicon for years in terms of like keeping data around and stuff like that. So it's not without the realms of possibility.
But then that data as well could be ruined if you had corrupted data. Yeah, there's always that possibility. But then, that's a massive breakthrough.
Massive indeed.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything else in the news that was quite amazing?
I have.
Enlighten us, Mr. T.
NatWest is set to impose
NatWest TSB.
New limits on cash deposits next month, fueling concerns around about the impact of cashless societies.
Well, I believe that there is a country that's actually gone fully cashless now, isn't it? Haven't they?
There's it's north of Europe. I can't remember who it was, but it's a digital city. It's the first digital city it was the first digital city in the world. Amsterdam ended up being like going beyond that, but then obviously, I've just been there. I could use cash, so it isn't as bad as all that. But supposedly, in Europe, there's a country that's a digital city. I think is it Latvia? I think it's something like that, where you just have no cash. You don't need cash.
Well, Sweden could be becoming the first completely cashless society. So basically, the guy, is it Nicholas Arvidsson at Stockholm KTH Royal Institute for Technology says it could happen by 2030.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure if this is actually a thing though, like at the moment, but they are speculating
forcing businesses to actually not use cash. So then it will force the little businesses to not use cash. That means we will not use cash to actually be able to buy the products. It'd have to be digital only.
Yeah. So in Sweden's technology is in Sweden technology is close to making cashless, making cash a thing of the past. So all aboard with cashless society. It's one of those, isn't it? I mean, we're kind of halfway there here already. Is it just a case of that we're kind of hanging on to it? But I just believe that barter, and being able to kind of, have a physical currency.
Yeah, we're going to have to do stuff like I'll paint your living room if you paint my fucking bedroom.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Have to do that kind of stuff.
Well, trading off, in terms to get a good deal or kind of help somebody out or.
But then I think cash will stay on kind of underground, but could only be used here and there. But what happens to people who are on like the streets? That's where it's
who rely on the kindness of strangers. To help them eat and get a roof over their head at night. I mean, at the end of the day, if everyone's cashless, which is, I'm assuming that they do find this now. Where most people who pass these homeless people in the street will turn around and say, "Oh, I only carry a card, mate. I don't carry cash." So the amount of people that say that now, is only going to get worse for people who are hard up.
It's true. Now, I was working a night shift yesterday, and I actually heard someone who was homeless on the streets walking past asking for cash. And the guy said, "I have no cash, I've got card only." And
he didn't whip out a card reader.
No, but he turned around and he goes, "Oh, I'll take Bitcoin, I'll take crypto, I'll take off your
You're
card."
joking.
Oh, that's why. And he was like, "Are you joking me? Seriously?" But if you think about it, that's going to be the only way apart from theft. That's only
going to be the point where this homeless guy's probably got more crypto than me.
Well, yeah.
Well, he probably has, because I don't do crypto at the moment anyway. But it's interesting, isn't it? Well, I've just heard a story about those NFTs. Do you know the gorilla NFTs?
Yeah.
Apparently, it kind of has gone under. There was a lot of people investing money in these kind of ape NFTs.
Yeah.
And they're basically being sued now for the fact that they were a big waste of time and money.
Yeah.
So
some of them
interesting.
you've got to watch out. Some of them are strong at the minute, but like we've got to look at future things as well, as in like future laws and stuff like that.
Well, we've got. I found this interesting story here. This is a really interesting one, right? Yeah. So basically, people love nature. Yeah, I like a bit of nature, right? There's nothing wrong with getting down with nature.
No,
right?
No, it's the only natural thing to do.
Well, there's a British farm that says they've got a problem with it. They've got a big problem with you getting down with nature.
What, badgers?
Well, no. This is a British farm that's urging visitors to stop doing something. Right? Can you guess what they do? What they're stopping?
Walking through the field.
Pretty much, yeah. So basically, this is it, right? So this British farm is urging visitors to stop posting naked photographs of themselves, standing in the field of sunflowers. I don't know what the urge is for
I don't know what the complaint is,
but basically, the owner of Stoke Farm Fruits, or Fruit Farm in
if you want to post
Hayling Island.
So if you want a naked picture, that's where he is.
Well, that's where this guy is, But the owner of the farm is basically saying, this is just off the English South Coast. He's issued an unusual request on social media. having noticed a growing number of visitors basically stripping naked and posing for pictures in the field.
I don't see a problem in
amongst
that,
all the sunflowers.
What, are you leaving stainage or something? I don't know. I don't understand what
I've no idea.
The issue is with it.
Well, it's just kind of nudity on his.
I
mean, at the end of the day, mate, it's kind of like, you can get in trouble for indecent exposure. You can, it's kind of. It's one of those. I think people think that if they're in nature and like you can go a bit of skinny dipping in the lake or whatever, but you've still got to be careful that you're not going to expose yourself to people.
Oh yeah, totally.
So there was basically in a post on Facebook earlier this month, the farm wrote. Reminder to all families, because this is a family area, so please keep your clothes on. In the sunflowers, there could be kids walking around. Do you know what I mean?
Enough, then.
And if these sunflowers are all really tall, and the next minute you're there with your tackle out,
but
and some little kid walks around the corner, you kind of like, what? You wouldn't know where to.
To be honest, though, they are
hide.
tall. They are like quite bushy. So if you walk to the middle, or near, deep in there, then no one should be able to see you. So there shouldn't be an issue.
Well, Sam and his sister, is it Netta, basically run the farm that their grandfather set up. So they've got about 350 acres, producing wheat, peas, potatoes, pumpkin, squash, sweet corn, and sunflowers.
Right.
Yeah. So they're just hitting the sunflower fields and getting a bit nude. So, I mean, personally, I can kind of see the appeal in terms of makes an aesthetically nice photograph. Yeah. But in terms of kind of public nudity, maybe it's not really the time and the place. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a business at the end of the day. So it's
but they're not really doing anything. They're not ruining the crop. It's just about.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but I mean, like I say, it is a business, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, you wouldn't walk into a florist and strip off and position yourself amongst the posies,
Some
would you?
people would.
Yeah. So in terms of like respecting other people's businesses, it's there's certain things you do and there's certain things you don't.
Yeah, but there are certain rules. If you're doing a business in the countryside and all that, you've got to let other people have access, and you've got to let animals have access. You've got to let certain things have a certain amount of access.
I'm pretty sure.
It's free land
but I mean,
at the end of the
day, but I mean, like they're not posing for photographs in the field,
but they're not really hurting anyone, are they? Apart from public
I get where
nudity,
you're saying from, but like it's a trend, so it seems that there's more and more people doing it. Yeah,
I want to egg people on to do it more. To be honest,
are you egging people on?
Yeah, go for it, gang. Go for it.
Well, there you go. There's opposing opinions there.
Just don't destroy the crop.
I'm a photographer, so I kind of like, I can see the aesthetic appeal. Yeah. But still, I'd be like, firstly, right, anything like that, right, if you want to, use land, that doesn't belong to you for a project or an event or anything like that.
2 minutes.
Ask the permission. Right?
Yeah,
Ask permission. If you want to camp on a farmer's field, ask permission. Right? So I'm pretty sure most of them will just be like, oh yeah, no problem. Just be kind of nice about it. But like, I think just doing it, it's getting to the point now where this farm in particular are getting a bit cheesed off, let's say.
I double that. Right. Go to the farmer, ask him. If they say no, go and do it anyway.
Naughty man. Right, anyway, come on, give us a story.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, right. I got through. So this is a kind of warning now. So I got through the other day a little post note through a company, through the electric company, stating helplines now. So it's proposing now that very, very soon that we're going to have lights going out. So
we kind of felt like this. There was a thing going on the web a couple of years ago, or last year actually. Yeah. I think we talked about it because they were basically talking about blackouts and power outages, and it looked like the more severe the outages were, it'd be kind of like you were allocated initial slots for your type when you're allowed electric on, basically.
Yeah. So
they
were gonna.
But as it gets more serious. The availability slots get less and less until you're pretty much sat in darkness, and those slots change what they mean. So at the very beginning it'd mean that slot means you won't have any power, but as it progresses it'd mean that you look for your slot where you will have power. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are kind of graphs and timetables available on the web if you want to go and have a look for it. But this has been being talked about for about the last year, I think. So have they started posting...
A little bit longer, but last
posting
year,
stuff through the door now?
Yeah, now things are getting posted through the door, and there's actually an emergency number now. If your electric that goes out, you to ring, which was another indication to me as well, because it's a part of emergency services, 105. Instead of like 101 for the police or 111 for the emergency services.
Well, it's interesting because I tried to get through to my electrical provider, and they basically turned around and said, unless you're trying to claim this government stipend, to help you pay your bills, or you're going to be getting cut off imminently, we don't really want to talk to you. So they are prioritising these as emergencies. So maybe it's getting to such a volume now that they need to have a crisis line rather than the switchboards on these energy companies being bombarded with this type of call. So I can understand that. Whether you need to go out and panic about your energies or whatever, or maybe invest.
Try to learn to not have electric. And see how far you could go. Yeah,
actually, that's a really good idea. You should try and kind of wean yourself off a little bit anyway, because
it helps the environment. It helps the environment. It also helps you.
It helps you, but it also kind of helps you taper off in terms of like going cold turkey when they do cut you off. Do you know what I mean? Because I know. Kids today with their internet, it's like, how are they going to react if the electric goes out?
Well, they estimated that if the world's electric goes out, then they reckon within 2 weeks 2 billion people would be dead because they can't survive.
Well, this is one thing is, right, going back to cashless society, right, say the electric did go out, how do you access your funds? Do you know what I mean? Because it's all internet and electrical-based means of checking and withdrawing and paying your bills. So it'd be like, shit, I've got an hour. I've got to pay all my bills in this hour slot and do all my banking and draw out enough money to, or kind of...
And you can't get through emergencies. If you're in emergency, you need like petrol so I can get in the car because my wife's having a baby or...
This is the thing, we do talk about internet going out, but the more likely scenario is the electric going out. And so that is quite interesting.
There's a big chance in the future that it will happen. It's not a case of when. Or if, it's a case of when. And there's an estimation between now and...
Come on, guys, you need to lick that cold fusion, get that up and running. I know they made a breakthrough, so why don't they get that sorted out ASAP? And
it needs to sort it out, or we need to try and get off electric. But, like, then when we weren't using electric, we were using steam and stuff like that. But we got to find some other kind of energy source,
I mean, also... try and make sort of contingencies for your electric going out.
That's why they're in that's why they're in the job. They're there to make sure that we are secure if anything goes wrong. And if they haven't got any plans for when the electric does, which I do know they have, but they need to make sure they put the serious work in instead of sitting and relaxing on a fucking beach.
Correct, sir. Correct. I've got this silly little story here. Well, I say it's not silly; it's quite serious, actually.
Oh right, wow.
Homeowners facing repair bills of up to $10,000 euros, I should say.
All right.
After animals introduced during the Nazi rule are destroying kitchens. Yeah, serious, right? This is a plague of drunken raccoons. Yeah. So serious. These animals aren't native to Germany. Yeah, but they were introduced during World War II. Yeah, right. So basically, these raccoons, they're breaking into properties.
Oh yeah.
Ransacking kitchens.
Yeah.
Stealing alcohol.
Now you know what the Americans are like.
Getting drunk.
Yeah.
And killing the family pets.
Oh, bastards.
I know. Yeah,
bastards.
Right. So this is a story, basically. So he's legit. This is coming out of Australia. Coming out of the Telegraph.
Oh, right.
So it is a legit story. Basically, a plague of intruders, raccoons, are getting into people's houses. There's been a bit of an uproar. Obviously, tenants are having to pay for the damages. But it kind of makes you think, doesn't it?
And getting rid of your pet as well.
Well, that's
You know
going to be
That's like a family
heartbreaking.
member.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, they see it as another animal in the house to kind of like
protection tool plus a comfort tool, and
obviously
it's good for you.
It's totally horrific, but they're causing havoc, raiding homes.
Yeah.
Now it makes me think, obviously, about kind of like ecosystems and stuff like that, and why Australia are quite funny about introducing new species in like mice and anything.
It's all right.
Because they run riot.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be there, so they have no natural predators.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
So
means
you're going to have to bring in a predator to get rid of them, and then you're going to have to get another predator to get rid of the other predators, because they will
then
be
you end up with snakes everywhere.
Yeah, spiders.
Well, what I reckon is it's hunting season, raccoon season's hitting Germany.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I reckon there's got to be a cull. I reckon they're going to have to,
especially if it's causing this much damage.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been affected, let us know, because that's quite interesting. I'd like to hear a bit more about it. But
Definitely.
it's kind of a weird one. I was like, no way.
Yeah, rampage.
I mean, they look like
they've been doing it in America and Canada for years.
This is why they've got the little burglar masks on, haven't they? These are raccoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like little
Stripey
criminals.
little bastards. That's
They
what
look
they
like
are.
criminals anyway, don't they? Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting one.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything else? Oh wait, actually, talking about pissed people.
Yeah.
Yeah, two intoxicated US tourists.
All right.
Yeah, trapped overnight in the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, you lucky bleeders.
Yeah, but they were pissed, so it was all right. Two American men were discovered on Monday after spending a drunken night in the Eiffel Tower. The two men had been in Sunday night, got tickets for the Paris's famous Eiffel Tower, but allegedly got trapped due to excessive alcohol consumption.
Allegedly.
Right? So Paris prosecutors told CNN. So the tourists found asleep early Monday morning in the Eiffel Tower. Security officers were doing the rounds and basically found them to passed out on the ground.
And it took them that long?
They were out. They locked up. No, they must have been out of it.
The security must have been. It should have gone up at least a couple of times between the night. Well, they've gone up once and gone, all right, this is the morning shift. All right, lazy fuckers.
Well, maybe they just didn't see them, or maybe they didn't. They don't go up there once they've cleared it out. They just lock it up and come out.
The blokes may have hid as well, because I've got a funny feeling that they were like, "Oh, Jeff, do you fancy?"
Probably
had a couple of drinks here.
Yeah, totally.
Let's stay the night. It's a story.
But they were quickly removed and handed over to the police.
Charges.
In a statement, was told that they'd been pressed charges, and they basically they were no threat, but obviously like there was also no damage found, so they just basically got a fine for trespassing on a historical and cultural site.
Lucky buggers.
So yeah.
Okay, because they could have got charged with something.
Well, as a result, they got to spend a night in the Eiffel Tower, didn't they?
Yeah, and they can say to a lot of people and have a big smile on
I
their face.
slept in that. Yeah, overnight, spent the night.
In there, yeah.
I can't remember much of it.
Is it? I think it is. Isn't it the Eiffel Tower that actually had a secret room? It was either that or the Blackpool Tower. There was one of them that had a secret little room, a little bedroom in there.
Oh, right. It might be the Eiffel Tower.
I think it is, to be honest.
Shame they didn't find it.
Yeah. Oh, they did.
They might have got a comfy night's sleep.
Yeah, and just got caught, in the morning going, stretching.
It kind of reminds me of these YouTubers, who kind of, hide in places like this.
Yeah.
Try and get locked in sports centres and places like that so they can go swimming in the night and go down all the water slides.
Well, it's not being used and not being
I've seen people hide in IKEA.
IKEA?
Yeah, they hide in wardrobes. There's so many like.
Are they lost? Is that what it is? Yeah, they're lost.
So in IKEA, there's so many room setups. Yeah, right, with wardrobes and understory, under the bed storage and stuff like that. So what these guys do, I've seen, they do overnight challenges on YouTube, right? So they kind of find somewhere to hide, let the security do the rounds, switch off all the lights, and then they emerge when the place is locked up. Then they've got the run of the place for the night, and then they kind of hide again when they open up and leave as a customer. Do you know what I mean? Like when it's a bit busier. Do you know what I mean? Like, so these people do it. If you YouTube like overnight challenges, you'll find quite a lot of these things. So it makes me think, were these guys actually just trying to pull a fast one when they were found the next morning, where they were like, oh no, we were just drunk.
Tell your grandkids, innit?
Yeah, we were just drunk. Yeah, so I don't know about that. Maybe it was one or the other.
Well, yeah, but that just means more companies will invest more cameras into the more rooms, so it can't happen. It just means there's going to be more cameras. They're not going to put more staff out.
They're going to have to invest in more in security,
Yeah, which makes... Then it's a bad one for us, because then we can't, walk around without cameras.
It's George Orwell. It's 1984. We're all being monitored. We are anyway. We can't go anywhere without being videoed. No. So it's something that, again, it's like, and the more kind of honest amongst us would just turn around and go, well, I've got nothing to hide, so you can film all me all
what
like.
The police say, well, you're looking guilty. You're shifty. You know what I mean? It's like
it's just that's just the way I look. Yeah. You can't tell me I look shifty. That's like I'm pretty sure there's a law against saying someone looks shifty.
No, I don't think. No, I've got a mate who's called Shifty.
That's but that's probably because he looks shifty. What I'm saying is, right? Yeah, it's defamation of character.
Yeah.
Yeah, by you saying you look dodgy, I wouldn't put it past you. Well, how do you know I would do that? I might be the most honest person in the world, but my eyes are a little close together.
In fact,
and that, to some people, might consider being shifty.
Well, that's profiling, isn't it?
Exactly, you're being profiled, and you're being, like, you're having your character defiled, so, I'm not 100% sure about that, Taylor. Do you know what I mean? It's like a Minority Report or something, like you guilty before you did anything.
Well, that kind of shit's kind of coming out. In fact, I believe last year there was one law that come in. I think it was in Israel, in fact, and it did, and it was
okay. So we'll have to do an episode on this. Yeah. So I mean, like, but what would happen if the door got bust in suddenly and they said, "Oh, we're here to arrest you for crimes you've yet to commit"?
I'd laugh in the face, some piss off.
Well, no, we've got reason to believe that you're going to go and do this.
Show me the proof.
There you go.
It's supposed to be, you got to prove me guilty.
You know what I mean? Innocent before proving guilty.
Exactly, but so, it's not.
Anyway, have you got anything else you want to talk about?
You go for one.
I've got plenty. I've always got loads of stories. Let's have a look.
Here we go. Northern Brazil. Yeah. They've just found the biggest city in the world. Never been. Yeah, it's thousands of years old.
Surely they would have known about this.
Yeah, but it's not any ordinary city. It's a termite city.
Oh right.
And it's baffled scientists because it looks like it's been there for thousands of years.
It's so big that it's established.
It's bigger than any human city that's ever been.
Really?
It is massive.
I'm going to have a look at that. I mean, what are they finding? I mean, I bet they can kind of glean a lot of
you work out
information about the social sort of aspects of termites' existence and in terms of like, if this city's been going for so long, then I'd assume that they might have some sort of kind of
got to have more than one queen, and they're going to have like little areas of the control areas. I suppose it's like human societies, like you have your authority in that area.
Well, they do. Ants have kind of a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So they have the queen, then they have generals. Yeah. Who protect the queens. Yeah. Then you have scouters who go out and forage for food.
Yeah.
Once they find it, they're able to kind of like secrete a pheromone which tells the other ants that there's food this way. And then the workers come out, and the workers also.
The same thing.
So there is kind of, it is interesting because we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? About kind of what animals kind of. We were talking about kind of what animals think about music.
Yes.
Like, and how we create music using instruments and materials.
Yeah.
And as another creature witnessing that. You'd be like, whoa, that's a bit weird. Yeah,
I've never seen or
so
heard
in terms
that
of like a colony of any insect or any animal that has been an established community for so long, you've got to think that, in a human evolution or human process that, if we're left alone for a long time, we're able to achieve really great things. Yeah.
We got the time and the ability, and we haven't got threats over our head all the time.
Oh, mate,
well,
this doesn't sound
animals
like these
have
guys
always
do.
got threats all over wherever they go. They've got no really comfort areas.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If this city, this termite city's been left for so long, then it sounds like they don't really have as many predators as they do. It's interesting stuff. I'm going to have to try and find that and have a good look at that.
Yeah, it was really surprising, man.
I found a technological story.
Yeah.
So we love a good drone, yeah. And there's been talks about kind of drone companies working with Amazon and all these things, delivering your pizza, whatever. You know, this is Google's parents' drone company or whatever. So basically, like, this is a Google company that's launched in South Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah. Drone delivery service.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's delivering basically like prescription drugs and stuff like that.
Yes, I believe there's one up in Scotland as well that they're trialling to send the post over to the islands.
Right,
Isle of
okay.
Skye, I think it is, yeah.
I bet it's a lot faster.
Well, yeah, but then they're doing the trials at the minute because of it can get really windy and cold up there, so the actual machine has to be able to have that ability to be able.
I know,
to
but in terms of drone technology now, it's come on leaps and bounds in the last 10 years. I mean, people are like flying one-man drones nowadays with all the same sort of GPS technology that these kind of like camera drones have. Most of these camera drones now, you don't even have to fly them yourself. You can have it locked onto a person. You send it up in the air and it'll track you and follow you. You don't even need to fly it. Yeah.
So get myself one of them.
So these drones that these guys use, where they're flying them themselves, all they literally need to do is pull back on the joystick to get them up in the air, and then the GPS tracking does everything for them. So the test I've seen is basically in a field, and the drone's not allowed to go out the boundaries of the field.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a height limit. And it knows where the ground is, so it's not going to crash into the ground. Yeah, it's technically just a drone. It's technically just a drone, but you can fit a man in it. So I believe these drones are going to only just get better. I believe that in the near future, we're going to just see loads of these little things flying and buzzing around.
That's why we need control of it
delivering all sorts of things. Google's parent company Alphabet is beginning drone delivery flights for medical supplies from pharmacies and basically delivering around South Dublin this year. So... Well, interesting. I'd actually like to see how that works, basically, and if anyone gets a bit pissed off with the bzzz every 5 minutes, or if people don't hear them, because
and even myself, I wonder if anyone's going to create a weapon to knock them out of the sky, because I could see.
Oh, mate, people with BB guns. People with BB guns will just be shooting them out of the sky.
No, probably something like an EMP gun or something.
Well, don't give anyone ideas. Wow. EMP gun.
Yeah.
And fire some EMPs.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you never know. Go on. Have you got anything else you want to talk about?
Yes. A lady.
I've just got NASA news now, me.
Called Ashley in California. Was hearing some noises in her house for like a good couple of months, and she thought, like, there might be something on the roof, or
for a couple of months.
What's
he doing on the roof?
Oh, I don't know. She thought that it might be birds and stuff like that. But then one day walked out of a yard and walked around the property, and all of a sudden she sees a hand coming out of the bottom of her house. Out of a little gap.
From underneath the house?
Underneath the house.
What was it?
So she walked round again and she spotted a man-sized hole.
Someone was living underneath a house?
Yeah, so she called 2 coppers. Cops come, brought him out. It was a homeless man who was, what was she said? He was batshit. What was it?
Batshit crazy?
Yeah.
By the sounds of it.
Yeah, he was on summit. Apparently.
So he's basically found a hole and thought, that's a nice little... and buried himself in like a little tick.
Yeah, high as shit, she says.
High as shit.
She was high as shit, and she's actually on TikTok.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I have to check it out.
But
some weird stuff on TikTok, I've got to admit.
Yeah.
I don't think the algorithms all that. I think it's a bit biased,
Yeah.
to a lot of stuff.
I think we kind of proved that
I
today.
proved that today. Yeah. So if this is my little 10 cents in.
Yeah.
So basically, if you post anything that's kind of like, shunned by the algorithm, it doesn't like it and it won't promote it.
No.
Yeah, right. So out of interest, I posted just a stupid video. Yeah, right, to see how that had performed next to something with actual factual information in. Yeah, right. Oh my God, it was horrendously bad. Yeah, it was like, I'd say 80 to 90% more traffic.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that it was a TikTok video made on TikTok with no content whatsoever, just silliness. Yeah, right. Over a video that actually imparts information, dismays a actual conspiracy theory that's that's in popular what's going around. It's a video that is scientifically factual, right, and it has been kind of penalized by the algorithm. Interesting. It makes me think, like, what things this algorithm does actually like and what it doesn't like. If anyone knows any information, if anyone actually has any information about this, let me know, because I'm quite interested in this at the moment.
And if we can get someone on it that we could talk to them about.
Maybe. We're going into NASA news now, I think. I found this story about a photo of a US Navy test that was basically edited to add a UFO rising out of the ocean.
Oh, right.
So basically, a lot of videos are coming out now, photographs and stuff like that, claiming to be military videos, military photographs, stuff like that, Navy, official kind of government footage. But apparently, like, this has been totally altered. The UFO was edited into the real image from the 1982 US Navy stock test. So basically, the altered version of the image shows basically a spacecraft coming out of the water, right? So it's been basically online since 2008. And it basically started to appear in loads of films and stuff like that as factual footage, right? So basically, this is it's actually appeared in a short fictional film called The Orion Conspiracy. The facts, the social media use of the shared edited image suggests that it's obviously evidence of extraterrestrials, and it's not.
So they haven't done their intelligence.
Well, no. What people do is jump to conclusion straight away. So they think, because I've seen it, it must be real. Yeah, right. Whereas if you do a little bit of looking and a bit of research and kind of like question everything, right. Always. Don't just jump to the idea that something's real just because somebody told you it or you watched a YouTube video on it, basically. So this photo shows what appears to be a metallic disc, a UFO basically emerging from the ocean. Meanwhile, large explosions are underway next to a naval ship. So you might have seen that. I'm
thinking of one where an helicopter follows one and it slightly goes under the ocean and there's no effect, and then it comes back out.
Well, like
I don't remember any explosion.
I mean, even us, don't just take what we say for read. Do double check everything, research everything, question everything. What I'll say is this is obviously it's a simple case of photo trickery and photo editing from 1982. So I mean, like, this is the photo. The original photo was taken in 1982 during a Navy stock test, and has basically lacked a UFO. So the original photos now come to light, and it's kind of made a lot of people go, "Oh right, so it wasn't real actually."
There
you go.
So it's good. I do enjoy it when the fakers come out.
Well, this is the thing though, because it's gone for almost fucking 40 odd years. It's gone for nearly 40 years. In fact, it has gone for 40 years where people have gone, that's real, that's real, that's evidence. And it's only now that we're kind of catching up with technology where we can kind of prove that that's wrong. And it's not even the fact, do you know what? It wasn't even the fact that we use technology. It was the fact that the original photo surfaced. It's a case of like suppressed information's now come out, which puts to bed this fakery.
Who's to question that it weren't the government that did it in the first place?
Maybe. Yeah, because obviously, I mean, photography techniques back then, obviously, to try and, superimpose or double negative or anything like that. Any sort of photography expert would be able to kind of find that and say categorically, no, this is fake. Yeah. So for it to go 40 years without anyone actually twigging onto it. Or maybe they have. Maybe people have been saying this is fake for years, but no one's really given the fucking
time.
Any time.
Exactly.
Any platform to say it on. So question everything, guys. Don't just believe what you see straight away. Obviously. Got another story here about NASA.
Yeah.
Talking about UFOs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
NASA has admitted, right?
All right.
It's investigated nearly 1,000 UFO encounters.
Has it come conclusions though?
Well, yeah, some of them will basically say that we can kind of know what a lot of these are. But basically, there's a lot of speculation on UFOs at the minute and what the governments know. There's a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to UAPs and UFOs. But obviously, they have to look into these reports. But at least 800 reports and eyewitness accounts about UFOs over the years have been basically dropped in a big congressional testimony, which we knew about, which is the David Greash stuff. But basically, they've just now admitted that there was literally 1,000 cases that they've kind of had to look into. And only a small percent of that's actually been able to be kind of put to bed as something that they already know about. So, for instance, weather balloons, swamp gas from Venus, that type of thing. But obviously, it leaves a small percentage of unidentified or unexplained phenomenon. So that I think this is it, filtering out what's fake and what's not. So, for instance, the photograph we've just talked about might have been one of the 1,000,
possibly,
and been put to rest because this evidence or this new photos come out and they've said, well, no, we can prove that one straight away. But it leaves that small percentage, and that's the interesting bit. The ones he can't explain, and obviously trying to get that. So we'll see what happens.
Since the Congress has come out and talked about it, there's a massive fight back at the moment. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out now and soon that he's going to be. Is it going to be trusted or not? Basically, because obviously those who have these new technologies don't want it to come out, and they don't want any connections to their company or whoever they are in the background. They don't want to be able to come forward, but they're being forced to in a kind of way. And there's still a lot way to go, a long way to go. But it's the biggest start now. To be honest, I think it's changed a lot of things at the moment, and I'm just hoping it stays on the good track and we actually find out the truth instead of the conspiracy stuff that are coming forward, alien invasion and stuff like that. Hopefully, they're going to stop all that kind of crap information, and if it is going to happen, it happen. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's true. What I'd say is kind of they just kind of need to be a bit more transparent about it all, don't they? Really?
Yeah. And that's the thing. They're getting forced to do it now.
Well, this is my last story for the night. This is a NASA SpaceX Crew 7 mission.
Oh, right.
That's going to be a manned flight.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is NASA's next crewed mission from to the International Space Station. Is set to launch from Kennedy Space Center on an American rocket and capsule built by SpaceX. What sets Crew 7 apart from the other series of long-duration missions is that only one of the astronauts is American.
Really?
Yeah. And it's an American project, American rocket, American capsule. Yeah.
Okay.
Only one of them is an American. I mean, obviously, it's whoever can do the job, isn't it? I suppose, whoever's best to do the job. But obviously, one of the 4 astronauts flying from the United States is American, and that's a good thing, experts said.
Yeah.
It reflects the
Totally.
changing nature of space and the way that we kind of
Internationally,
operate there,
yeah.
and it's an international operation. I feel like it's more about automation and globalization.
Yeah.
For the astronauts flying, there's basically a lot of positives. The 2 former astronauts said more automation means that the training's quicker, so there's less tedious sort of things to kind of procedures to kind of go into.
Yeah.
The whole automated system for rockets and stuff like that now is really impressive because, I mean, obviously, like you say, it means that everyday people can go to space. You know what I mean? It's making it so...
You've got the cash.
Well, if you've got the cash,
yeah.
but it makes it so that you don't need any specific special training to be able to get up there if you were...
Yeah, but you're gonna have to have a certain amount of like health checks and stuff like that, and you're at least the ability to do certain things. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they're not going to just send up any old Tom, Dick, or Harry, are they? You've got to have specialist skills.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I have a set of skills.
Yeah, you can't send the weirdo in the village in there. You know what I mean?
Well, they're not sending you, basically.
No, I'm not leaving Earth.
Potentially they might. Well, I'm going to try and get you on it.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting one. Obviously, like these four new astronauts going up to the space station. I'm sure two or 3 of them have been up there before.
Yeah.
But it does kind of like show where we're going with this. It's more of a global effort rather than taking it on personally from one country to the next. I mean, still, obviously, there's still a lot of countries that have their own dedicated space programs.
Yeah.
But being able to kind of say to other space agencies, do you want to get involved in this?
Well,
it kind of opens it up a lot. I feel sharing information and being kind of like transparent and being able to share data. Now, have you ever seen The Martian?
Yeah.
Right, so there's an interesting scene in that where they call up the Chinese space agency, and they're like, "Look, we need to do this," and they've got something in development,
right,
and it's top secret, So the Americans don't know about it, but it means that they can do their mission like 5 times as fast, right? But because a man's life's at stake, they go, "All right, we've got this thing, it's in development, but we believe that it can help you, right?" Yeah. Sharing information only progresses us further, faster.
Totally.
Right? Totally. Suppressing the information and keeping it to yourself, right, is the worst thing we can possibly do. I believe that information and, education is for everyone. I mean, why suppress information and stop people having it or charge you for it, or any of that? I feel like that's a really wrong thing to do. So basically, I feel like all these government agencies, all these space agencies should be like, right, we need to do a big conference, right, where we share our ideas. I mean, as far as I know, they might be something like that. But, like, I mean, more so. Do you know what I mean? Like, work together more.
Yeah, but you've got a problem there with, like, secrecy.
I understand there's problems with secrecies and stuff like that. But, let's face it, right? If one agency is able to do the mission and send a rocket up because they've had years and years and years of practice of doing it, aka NASA, right? But India, who've just started up their own space program, or the UK, who's just started up their own space program, might have teething issues, Is it moral for SpaceX and NASA to stand back and watch them fail and potentially harm people or, like, put people at risk because they want to retain secrets?
SpaceX is already planning on sending a rocket from England's space ports. And there is, in fact, my next story is actually good onto that because Russia. Now, if you remember last week, I said about...
well, we're not really friends with Russia at the moment.
No, and they've had no communication on, space and stuff like that, apart from the ISS, which they're trying to break away through anyway.
They're trying to create their own, aren't they? Their own space station, like Sputnik. Yeah,
well, they were on a race 4 days after India sent their space probe to go onto the dark side of the moon. Now... Interestingly enough, Russia's didn't go to plan. It actually crashed. It didn't manage to actually land. But then I found a little bit more information on something else, that actually the probe from China, supposedly there is over 1,000 so-called buildings pictured on the dark side of the moon.
So do you think China's already got a base up there?
China's planning on, with Russia, both planning on setting bases there by, I think it's 2025.
Okay, so not long then.
Yeah, not
That's only
that
a couple
long.
of years.
Yeah.
Good on him. Well, let's see what happens. I mean, the thing
Yeah.
is, the race to the moon is now the gateway to the universe, isn't it? In terms of like refueling and kind of having a bit of stop off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is an interesting one to see who does colonize as well as basically take ownership. Of the moon. Yeah.
But it does show that without communication and basic together, your plans ain't going to exactly work the way you want it to work. You know what I mean? And they haven't sent a rocket up since 1976. That's 46 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Well, we'll see. We'll watch that with bated breath, I'm sure.
We will.
Well,
I've got another story.
Normally he's not got many. Now he's got loads. Come on.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
We're running out of time, though, so you best be quick.
All right. Well, the scientists are surprised. The James Webb Telescope, on looking outside to as far as they can, they reckon that they've actually found a dark matter, but in a star. And this star is like bigger than the solar system.
Oh, right. Fucking hell, that sounds big.
Yeah, bigger than a galaxy, normal sized galaxy. It's just massive around it. But the thing is, that's from the past. They reckon that it was like 4.5 million years just after the Big Bang. So that area possibly could be the reason why we're supposed to have dark matter around us, something like 70% or something like that. And that could be where it actually come from. So that may answer a question that we've been asking for a long time. Where's dark matter? Well, it looks like we might have actually found where dark matter was, but then now where is it? Apart from obviously around us, and it could work out to be a good scanning system as well, because if we can find out what dark matter is and how to use it to actually take photos, and even better photos of the solar system and the galaxies, and not all the galaxies around us, because it'd be a better mapping system.
I was going to say, because I mean, like, obviously the James Webb Telescope, it's out there looking for stuff.
Yeah.
Is it looking in a kind of like a 360 sort of in every direction, or is it just pointing out into space and just hoping for the best? Because I mean, obviously, if I was creating some sort of like telescope to go up into space, I'd want it to be like one of these 360 cameras that kind of is able to capture everything all around it, not just what's in front of it.
Maybe the next one possibly could, but this one, I believe it's pointing at the area that we believe is the Big Bang, where the Big Bang actually happens. Because if you look down there, you can see more, because it looks in a red spectrum, so you can see more stuff there, and actually where, how it come to be, or supposedly come to be.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there you go. There's that. There's the show. I think it's been an interesting one.
Yeah.
I hope we've not burned your head out too much with all this science. But we'll be back next week for another excellent episode, I'm sure. We've got a great topic for next week.
Yeah, I can't wait for next
actually,
week.
I've come up with I'm going to mention it on the news, but then we decided to actually do an episode. Taylor sent me something on it, and I was like, right, we'll do the episode.
Yeah, it's
so
a big,
we got a big one next week.
Yeah.
Make sure you come back for that. We've got some more guests coming up in the next coming weeks as well.
Yippee!
So stay tuned. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. So over on Spotify, in wherever, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Alexa, everywhere. Amazon,
YouTube,
Google, wherever.
Yeah.
Right. We've got the website at neverastraightanswer.co.uk. And you can email us.
You can.
On our new email.
Yeah, we've got a new email address.
neverastraightanswer@outlook.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
The old one's still there.
The old one's still there, and if you
go
go over to the website, there is a contact page on the website as well.
There is.
We're trying to bring the new email in because the old one missed the A.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were worried that we were losing emails here.
Yeah.
People trying to email us and putting the A in.
Now it's going to come flooding in.
Hopefully. So neverastraightanswer@outlook.com is the new email address. As well as neverstraightanswer@gmail.com as well. If you want to get in contact, we're on all the social media sites. Join us on TikTok, join us on Instagram, join us on YouTube. We're very approachable, so if you've got something to say, come and have a word with us.
Say it and we'll have a word with you.
Yeah, we're very nice.
Yeah.
In fact, we've been called the nicest and the nicest people on TikTok.
Oh, that's
so that's excellent.
Man.
Yeah. So I'll keep that. I bank that.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll see you there. I've been Gaz.
I've been Taylor.
We've been the Never a Straight Answer podcast. Peace.
Out.